YouTube community, the Flame fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and I'm so stoked today that we're finally talking about The Flame, the debut album on Brother Records from The Flame, or The Flames. Let's get into this. The Flame, a band from South Africa. They started touring around. They got to Europe and England and started touring England heavily. One night while on tour, the Beach Boys are out there. Carl goes to a nightclub. Carl sees The Flame on stage. He goes, whoa, these guys are awesome, or they're called The Flames at that point. He says, holy moly, these guys are awesome. Gets them to open for the Beach Boys on their Sunflower tour later in the year. And then says, hey, do you guys want to come to Los Angeles and make an album and live there and, make music together? And the Flames were like, yeah, of course. So they went over to America and they cut this record. They changed their name to The Flame because of James Brown and his famous Flames. So they dropped the S because they didn't want to be associated or confuse the record buying public at the time. But the Flames had been around since the early 60s and had put out records in South Africa. Singles, full-length albums, and some minor member changes along the way. But when Blondie joined, he was a teenager. And when Ricky joined, apparently he was 9 years old. So he had been in the band forever. But the group is made up of three brothers and Blondie. So it's Brother Fatar, Steve Fatar, Ricky Fatar, Blondie Chaplin. Those last two names, Ricky Fatar and Blondie Chaplin, obviously those guys went on to become Beach Boys after this album was made. But this album, for me, I've wanted to have a physical copy for a long time, so I finally have one now. It's taken a long time to get one, and I'll show you why I waited, because it's pretty cool. But this album is a lost classic. If you love the White Album era Beatles, or a little bit of Harry Nilsson, or a little bit of the Monkees or the Hollies, and just like straight up late 60s rock, you will adore this album. Like, I don't know why this thing has gotten so passed over all these years. The unfortunate thing too is apparently all their master tapes were lost in a fire in the late 70s. So there was a CD reissue of this thing from 2006, I believe, which happens to be a needle drop copy. And if you don't know what that term means, someone literally played the record and recorded it and put it onto a CD and mass produced it, is what that means. So there's that. So this album is begging to be reissued. They did record a follow-up LP in 1971, but it didn't go anywhere, and Brother and Steve weren't really feeling it. They weren't really feeling being in America anymore, so they kind of went their different directions, ultimately ending The Flame at that point for a little bit. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyways, this album, if you haven't heard it, it's on Spotify. Give it a stream. If you can find a copy, good luck. But pick it up if you do. Blondie and Ricky going on to become Beach Boys was just like icing on the cake for that era of the Beach Boys. And especially because Dennis had hurt his hand, and Brian was in and out. Bruce was gonna slightly leave at some point in 1972. So like by the time the Flame broke up, Blondie and Ricky were kind of like, well, where do we go from here? And the guys were like, hey, just join the Beach Boys. And they were like, yeah, all right, let's do that. So they joined the Beach Boys, and the rest is history. But I am such a big fan of this record, so let's just start talking about it. Track 1, See the Light. Man, this song is so good. Like I said before, if you like the White Album era Beatles, you're going to love this album. This song in particular, this was actually a single for them. See the Light was their first single in October of 1970 with the B-side of Get Your Mind Made Up, the first song on side 2. And what a pack of a punch of a single that thing is. Holy moly. But these guys know how to write hooks, catchy riffs, tight melodies. They are so skilled musically. They're unbelievable. The jams on this song are fun. The background vocals are soaring. Blondie rocks the lead vocal. It's just groovy vibe rock. And the bongo part at the end, they just nailed this song. This should have been a massive hit for them, but obviously it wasn't, but it should have been. Track 2, Make It Easy, kind of follows up that feel with almost, for me, a Loaded era Velvet Underground kind of feel. It's gritty, slightly Rolling Stones-ish. It's just got that great guitar interplay, awesome vocals. This would have been a great one to sing along to live in concert, but it's a song about trying to get better and trying to look for the positive in life. Hey Lord follows that up, and I love the drums on this one. Awesome, heavy energy on this, pleading vocals, very soulful. It just feels kind of like a good loose jam that pops up here and there in the middle, especially in the middle bit, but it's a hard rock frenzy of the song. Lady, A little bit of a slower country ballad at first with, again, great guitar interplay. And the chorus vocals on this one remind me of Crosby, Stills, and Nash, definitely getting that kind of vibe. But it's a laid-back kind of song about, your girl and how she makes you feel. Simple as that. And the last song on side one is one that Beach Boys fans will be familiar with, Don't Worry Bill, which they would perform with the Beach Boys for a couple of years there in the early 70s. They'd mix it in with Wonderful from the Smile album, so they called it Wonder Bill, which is kind of cool. But yeah, background vocals are truly wonderful, totally Beatles-esque. And the whole "Brother, Won't You Hold On" line, like it's so good. It sounds like a song Blind Faith would have done. And Steve's on lead vocals on this one. Steve guitar. Side two opens up with "Get Your Mind Made Up," and this is probably one of my favorite songs on the record. It sounds like a Small Faces song. Like you just imagine Steve Marriott jamming with these guys. Like it just sounds perfect. The shared vocals from Steve and Blondie work so well. Again, another natural knack for hooks and catchy refrains. The whole, don't send me your pictures, it's you I want back. Total White Album feel. Guitar shrieks, it jams for a while. Hell of a song. Highs and Lows follows that one up. It's a little bit of a somber tone at first, which is good, so the mix of the songs aren't just, blasting you in the face the entire time. So it's a little restricted and delicate. And the chord changes sound a little bit like Something off Abbey Road. But then it changes to more upbeat chorus as it goes along. But they just knew how to write classics. It's one of those songs where you're just like, this is, again, a lost early 70s rock and roll classic. It almost sounds, and at times, a little Pink Floydian in their guitar picking or the reverb, the kind of atmosphere, the space they create. Love that one. And then I'm So Happy follows that one up, and thankfully a happy sounding song about being happy, so it works really well. But just a joyous exclamation, a song about getting past the hard stuff and like finding your new, less encumbered self in life, and kind of, understanding it's okay to feel happy after going through some hard stuff. But yeah, great acoustic guitar adds some depth to that song as well, which you don't hear much acoustic guitar on this album. Dove follows that one up, and I love the slow build on this one. Kind of a tender guitar being picked, beautiful background vocals, awesome track. And then Another Day in Heaven, Another Day Like Heaven. This one is a really cool song. It was actually the last single from the LP. Slow rocker, such a soulful lead vocal, great background harmonies, but the song just slams into this overdrive, hard rockin' second half. And it's just this jammer the whole way out that keeps flowing. And insane to the very end, they do a reprise of See the Light, the first song on the record. So they kind of do a callback to the first track on the album. But man, by the time this record is done, you're really left saying to yourself, why wasn't this a massive hit? Why wasn't this getting played on the radio? Why am I not hearing this now on classic rock radio? I'm asking the same thing. This has all the makings of all those bands that had that perfect rock sound. But while I have mentioned probably some of their influences, they're very much themselves. Lyrically, storytelling-wise, their history, their camaraderie, the chemistry between the playing. These guys were tight and they knew how to play off each other. And the lyrics are just thoughtful, soulful, longing, searching. They really had a little bit of a spiritual essence to life, and is the outlook of like looking for the positive and knowing that things can be rough, and even talking about some of the hard times as well. But a lot of the songs are kind of like having overcome hardships. It is an incredible album. Here's the back cover. Love that back cover. So great. And if you look at the very bottom, by the way, this was the only non-Beach Boys thing on Brother Records, which is pretty cool. But at the very, very bottom, if you might be able to pause and zoom in, it says, produced by Carl Wilson. It was also apparently one of the first quadraphonic albums mixed for quad. And what that means, if you're new to the speaker setup, usually you just have 1, 2 speakers. But with quad, you have 4. And so typically you'd set them up kind of around you, what these days we would call Atmos. Similar. Let me show you this. So the reason why I waited to pick up a copy, let me show you the record first. Oh, it's just so cool to see that Brother Records logo. Love that. Just so cool. Here's something you don't see every day. This is the original quad sheet that came with the record itself, explaining what quad was and how to set up your speaker placement. And if you hold it up to the light, it actually says Weston's hand weave 28% cotton fiber for the paper, which is kind of cool. You probably won't be able to see it, but it's right there in the middle. Anyways, it shows a dude's head, and it shows the speaker setup to kind of give you that quad feel, that 4-speaker feel, which was new at that time. And they would end up pressing a lot of albums in that kind of style. So that piece of paper is almost impossible to find. And this is like, whew. You do see this sometimes, but not a lot. And it's just beautiful. Look at this poster. Super heavy cardstock, really nice ink. The colors are sharp, great pictures of the guys, and that logo in the middle. Look at that. I think I might frame this because it's the coolest thing. It looks brand new. Like the paper is so clean. There's no tack marks anywhere on it. It's just stunning. So it was worth waiting to get that poster and that quad sheet. So there you go. The Flame, their self-titled debut for Brother Records. You know, not their first album. They've had albums before that. But I guess you can say it's their first album as The Flame and not The Flames. So that's kind of different. But for me, honestly, 10 out of 10. And I say that because the drive, the spirit, the enthusiasm, the artistry, the creative outlook these guys had, they were a force to be reckoned with. And it's an absolute shame that this album didn't blow up and take them all over the world. But we also got them to join the Beach Boys, which is pretty damn cool. But this album deserves to be heard. It deserves a second chance. Hopefully somebody somewhere has master tapes of this record and their second one. It needs to be reissued on vinyl. It needs to be reissued on CD. Probably a better copy put on Spotify or something. It's an album that needs to be heard. It's amazing rock and roll music from the point of view of a hungry band wanting to prove themselves. And whenever you have that ingredient, you've got a good album on your hands. There's nothing worse than listening to complacency or listening to, you know, pedestrian, like, oh, we're here to make an album. Like, these guys have something to prove. They're with the Flame. Like, this is what rock and roll is supposed to be. So, with that said, if anybody's watching this who works in the record industry, please talk to me. I'd love to help put this thing out again for you. Anyways, my name is Giggens. This has been The Flame. 10 out of 10. If you've heard this album, please let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Really stoked to talk about this record with you guys. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of their unreleased stuff in a different video. But there you go. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Giggens. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.